What's up, everybody? Welcome to Kinda Funny Games Daily for Monday, May 21st, 2018. Yes, my dad's birthday. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside Waypoint's own Patrick Klepek.
Hello, thank you. I didn't know which camera to look at. I was like, there's 3 cameras. I'm just going to move my eyes between all of them and then just see how it lands.
What we like to do, I've noticed on this show, and I say this lovingly as the host and as maybe the figurehead of Kinda Funny, is tell the guests nothing.
Yeah.
You know, there was no briefing of what's happening and how to expect it. It was just like, you guys ready? Yup. Dead silence. And you're like, what the fuck's going to happen next?
Sent a message last night. I was like, should I read up anything? I haven't been looking at the internet. I'm on vacation. Like, nah, you're fine. I'll give you a stack of papers. Don't even look at them.
Yeah, don't worry. It'll be fine. Well, you just get to be in the co-pilot seat here. I'll get you there. You got plenty of time to simulate your thoughts and what's
I can bullshit.
So now, that's the thing. You're on vacation.
I am. Yeah. Well, me and my wife, my daughter, we came out. We lived in San Francisco for better part of 7 or 8 years, and her brother lives out in the east side, and so we decided, hey, best thing to do before E3 is try and rest up a little bit. So thought I'd squeeze it in.
Well, thank you for coming by here on vacation. Course. We've been trying to do this forever, you and I.
Yeah, we've probably exchanged messages on this 5 or 6 different times. Yeah. I think the last time I had time to do something, and then you were busy.
Yeah, that's how it goes. You know how it is.
Now I've got all the time in the world.
I wasn't blaming you.
No, it's okay.
Okay, cool. I'm excited to do
it. And I opened a LaCroix. I felt like I need to contribute to the effort. Like, you gave me the pitch on it. I was like, do you want to take a case? I'm like, I'm on vacation. I don't need to take that on the...
I mean, well, here, Nick has your parting gift for coming to be on the Kinda Funny Games Daily.
You can't turn it down.
You can't, no. Your brother-in-law lives in the area. You're telling me he wouldn't like a refreshing LaCroix?
If they find out that I could have brought a bunch of LaCroix back...
Your wife won't think it's hilarious when you just show up with 3 cases there and 8
I told her I was doing this at noon and she could watch it, so hopefully she's not. Otherwise, I'll have some sort of message about...
I guarantee she's not.
She has LaCroix preferences.
Yeah?
Yeah, but I don't know what they are.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's too much, right? I'm lucky if I can remember the size T-shirts. And
exactly.
What do you want? Men's. It's but if it's a female, it's too much. If you didn't know, ladies and gentlemen, this is Kinda Funny Games Daily. Each and every weekday on a variety of platforms, we run you through the nerdy video game news you need to know about. If you like that, be part of the show. Write into kindafunny.com/KFGD. Give us your questions, comments, bad PSN names, and everything else under the video game sun. Then watch us record it live on twitch.tv/kindafunnygames. If you're watching live, you have a special job. Go to kindafunny.com/you're wrong. Tell us what we screw up as we screw it up so we can set the record straight. For everybody watching later on youtube.com/kindafunnygames and listening later on podcast services around the globe.
I have a bad PSN name.
What is it? Oh, yours personal?
Yeah, personally.
What's yours?
McAdams.
Yeah, that's bad.
It's bad. When I bought my PS3, before I'd done the transition to I'm gonna rename everything to just my real name. This is before the public persona sort of stuff. And I was had different variations of online names. I was just sitting there registering PSN. I looked up. I had a poster of McAdams.
Yeah.
And I thought, cool. All right. Who cares what my PSN name is?
Yeah.
Put it in. Deep regret and shame for years now, and I keep waiting for them. I know you are on this crusade.
Oh yeah, they'll do it eventually. Sean Layden.
Yeah,
elves are hard at work.
They are.
Been 6 months, Sean.
They are hard at work. It is. I have heard various stories about why that has not happened.
Yeah, me too.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
It is not for.
I hear we're close.
It is not for lack of trying.
Yeah.
It is a lot of trying.
The sources I have always indicate we're close. This time I feel like we're really close.
I've been told, it's about 6 months away for the better part of 6 years.
Yeah. We'll see. The fact they're talking about it out there, I think you'll get there. Yeah, I got lucky with the Game Over Greggy stuff, and it's because I was doing the Game Over column at the Trib. I tricked a local retailer into giving me a Xbox 360 and came home and I needed something, and every character I'd ever named was Greggy. So I was like, oh, Game Over Greggy, and there it was. But I did the same thing. You're talking about not having the persona or whatever, right?
Yes.
Years and years and years and years ago, I was coming home and Colin texted me, and this was a long time ago, and he was just like, hey, I think somebody might have hacked your PSN. And he's like, you logged on, are you at your PSN? I'm like, no, I'm on the street. He's like, no, you logged on, and it was just like, oh my God, tell Greg I'm sorry. And I was like, what? And because it was I went through and this is back, and I hope they've changed it, but it was back when it was just oh, you don't remember your password? What's your date of birth? And what's your pet's name? And I filled all this out, never thinking anyone would care about my birthday or Portillo or anything.
Yeah, those are very obvious pieces of information.
And it was it was that easy to take over the Game Over Greggy PS3 account at the time back then. Luckily, 2-step verification now. Nobody can catch me, I'm sure. Don't try. Housekeeping for you. We're doing a Kinda Funny prom stream Friday on twitch.tv/kindafunnygames from 2 to 5. All sorts of shenanigans as we get ready for prom. And then today we're brought to you by Brooklyn and MeUndies, but I'll tell you about that later. For now, let's begin the show with what is and forever will be the Roper Report. Time for some news We have these bootleg segments, you know what I mean? Where just cool Greg talks into a microphone.
No, that's good. That's all right. Hey, it's keep it humble.
4 items on the Roper Report.
A baker's dozen.
Thank you, cool Greg. Number 1, and this is gonna hurt a lot of you, I know, because since it's been going, I got to hear about Gamers Club Unlocked and all this crap from Best Buy. Rest in peace, Best Buy's Gamers Club. This is Charlie Hall over at Polygon. Electronics retailer Best Buy is no longer selling Gamers Club Unlocked, a membership program that granted 20% discounts on new video games and pre-orders. The company apparently broadcast the news to stores via internal memo last week, though Polygon could not confirm its existence from any of the employees it spoke to. While an informational page describing GCU still exists, the option, I like it, it sounds so official, Patrick. You got a GCU still exists. The option to purchase a new membership has been removed from the Best Buy website. Polygon reached out to several Best Buy locations nationally and found that the part number has been deactivated in their computer systems, meaning that expiring memberships cannot be renewed. Store operators told us that existing memberships will be honored until they expire. GCU has been a long-running promotion at Best Buy. The 2-year membership was originally priced at $99.99, but was dropped to $29.99 in March 2015. The move prompted online retailer Amazon to offer a similar benefit to Amazon Prime members in January 2016. Discounts are applied at checkout. Store associates were unclear if the GCU program was being canceled outright or if the program was being retooled or rebooted in some fashion. Polygon has reached out to Best Buy for more details, but nothing yet.
The GCU just sounds like one of those aborted MCU copycats.
Yep. Yeah. It's something bad. It's something bad happened in the DC universe.
The dark universe is under the GCU.
Exactly. Eric K wrote in with a question, just like so many of you did, kindafunny.com/KFGD, and says, "Hey, Greg and Patrick. So a few weeks ago, a reader wrote into kindafunny.com/KFGD, just like you can, and pointed out Amazon stopped selling Sony exclusives with the 20% off discount and pre-order. Now Best Buy is axing Gamers Club Unlocked. Greg and Patrick, tell me, who do I blame for this? Publishers trying to eliminate the cheaper way to land a new game? Those 2 retailers realizing they are losing money? Or something else? As a gamer on a budget, those Amazon pre-order discounts were amazing, and luckily I pre-ordered God of War before they took away the discount. Thanks for your hard work. You guys make E3 week my favorite commutes of the year. Eric K."
Well, there was a period where you couldn't order anything Sony on Amazon, right? Right leading up to the God of War launch, and the little scuttlebutt I had heard about that was, ultimately this stuff is often arguments over margins, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's a much bigger picture battle between Sony as a corporation and all the stuff they sell on Amazon, and Amazon realizing they're the largest distributor for a lot of this stuff. Right, exactly. And so the reason all of that stuff was happening was, from the sources I had talked to, they didn't know the specifics over why they were squabbling. It's just this stuff happens every once in a while. Sony is just brash enough to actually go toe-to-toe with Amazon over it. Nintendo has done it a bunch of times on Amazon.
And now it sounds crazy, but remember pre-Switch, right? You couldn't get any of the Nintendo stuff going on there.
Yeah, and that happens. It just seems to happen every once in a while, and I would just be curious, it's probably squabbling over hundreds of millions of dollars.
These 20% add up pretty quick. Why do you think, hypothesize with me, Best Buy Gamers Club going away? What's the deal there?
It's probably margins, right? It's ultimately you're trying to get people to come onto your platform. They want for some period of time, there's probably a conversion or a retention rate that made sense. Yeah. And it wouldn't shock me if Amazon has just chipped away at that over and over again. But what it probably means is that the lack of competition means there's gonna be less of an incentive for Amazon, anyone, to offer these kinds of benefits in the future, and they probably more than likely all just go away or reduce to the point where it's not nearly as interesting as it used to be. But I, even as someone that we're lucky enough, a lot of the games we get from companies and stuff like that, the ones that I did buy, I did map that stuff out in advance, where even if I wasn't sure I was going to buy that game, I'd still pre-order it.
Sure.
Because lock in the rate.
Yeah, you got to lock in that
introductory rate. As an adult owns a house, as a kid, I like the lock-in rates. Yeah, get the lowest rate possible.
Yeah, I think that's the point, right? And that I think people were missing in a lot of their questions is just the fact that I bet you, first off, it reminds me a lot of MoviePass, right? Of, all right, cool, it's $100. Oh gosh, now in 2015 we're going to lower it to this. Cool, we got people in, but how many do we get in? What is the return on that? What is the return on the investment now? Are we just losing money on this? Because as I've said on this show, and as I was joking around with it, since we started doing this, and I would mention, oh man, why would anybody buy anything physical anymore? Buy everything digital. And the people coming out and being like, no, Amazon Prime. And then people would be like, no, Gamers Club. And
right.
There's definitely a hardcore group that have been using this Best Buy program, but I don't know how big the group was. And I think that's where you start shifting the sands of,
Yeah, and you get used to a program, and the idea of having to look for another one, figure out like, does it actually fit with my finances? Like doing all like crunching the numbers. Like I understand why people become loyal to a specific one over the other because like it works and like you were happy with it. And so why does it have to go away? And my guess is it is like a really boring, banal thing, which like eventually like it just didn't make any sense. And people are either just going to buy on Amazon or the people who are buying on Best Buy, we're just going to buy it on Best Buy anyway. Right. And so like why offer them a discount when they're already doing X, Y, and Z?
Well, now you can all come to the digital side. That's the future.
I buy most of my stuff digitally, especially, you know, I don't get stuff from companies for movies. So it's like all the other forms of media stuff I'm purchasing. But like there's certain things that I'll still buy in a physical form. Like I have like a real visceral reaction to a movie. And it's like, I just like, mostly I want to be able to hand it out to people. Like I watched a movie, last movie I bought like a couple of months ago, Bone Tomahawk, like this really hardcore, like really great action movie. And I was just like, I want to show people this movie. So like I bought a copy. Like I just want to be able to hand this out to be like, hey, you should go watch this movie. That said, like even when I buy stuff digitally, I know there are these, like limited run games, and these other places that do physical versions of like a lot of like indie things or digital stuff. I wish I could just buy boxes sometimes because I actually still like having to I like showing a collection. I'm not a completionist, so like I don't want to have a whole like all the games I own, but like there are certain games that like mean a lot to me. Sure. And I would love to be able to like put that on, because these days like in my house, like the shelves to me are not about like housing everything. It's not storage. It's actually about like what when people walk in and they look at a shelf like, oh, like they see all these horror movies that are like specially curated, like, oh, this says something about Patrick and what he's interested in. And like, that's what those shelves mean to me, and physical stuff, that's where it like lives in my life. I wish there were easier ways to just actually have just something that I could put up. And that's probably like a really like niche market.
Tattoos,
like,
man. Just get tattoos. Just tattoo out all over your arms. You know what I mean? Love Metal Gear. There he is.
Put it in my back. That's fine. I'll just start tattooing it on my daughter. She doesn't know.
There you go.
Like she can't, refute
Kids love
it.
their parents telling them what they like.
I don't know how young you can take a kid in to get a tattoo.
I don't know.
Google that.
I mean,
Someone tell me.
It's pretty easy with the new.
She's almost 2. That seems fine.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But I mean, if Ozzy could give himself tattoos, like you can definitely. Number 2 on the Roper Report, Resident Evil 7 is coming to Switch, kinda. This is via Brian over at Nintendo Everything. Resident Evil 7 Cloud version is coming to Switch, Capcom has announced. As the name implies, Resident Evil 7 will not be launching on Nintendo's console in the traditional sense. Everything runs through the cloud, parentheses, the download is just 45 megabytes. So you won't actually be purchasing the full game that can be played offline. You'll need a stable internet connection while accessing the title. Players will nonetheless be able to play Resident Evil 7 in its entirety on Switch. This includes all the DLC it goes on to. Resident Evil 7 can be played for up to 15 minutes on Switch for free. After that, you'll need to purchase a 2,000 yen ticket, which lasts 180 days. Then they updated the article. Resident Evil 7 Cloud version now has a listing on the Japanese eShop, and it is confirmed that English will not be included. Only Japanese is supported. It's unclear what this means for any possible release in other territories.
I don't think they've done one of those. There's another example on the Switch of them doing the stream. I think Sega did it with Phantasy Star Online, is also a game that only launched in Japan on the Switch and was also streaming. My guess is it's like a weirder pitch, so like they're just not sure like how that's gonna play. I mean, Resident Evil 7 is a great game. It's one of my favorite games that came out last year. I think it's like far and away like the best example of like what VR can do to a game. I think Resident Evil 7 is a perfectly fine game like to play traditionally, but in VR I think it's actually like a fundamentally different experience. 100%. Like I played the whole thing in VR. It was easier to aim in VR. It was scary as hell in VR, and like I'm glad maybe more people get a chance to play it. The Switch is maybe not the like ideal way to play that game. Like they like that you want like the biggest screen, big sound.
Well, you want to be immersed in it, right?
Yeah, like it's a very atmospheric game. But yeah, I think it's interesting. Like this is probably some sort of compromise where like could they get that game running on the Switch? Probably, but like, it's a lot easier is just like to have a PC, just like pump it through the internet.
I was going to say Caesar Towers writes in to kindoffunny.com/KFGD and says, howdy Kind of Funny Games Daily Crew. With Resident Evil 7 coming to the Switch in a very unusual way, being a streamed game instead of being downloadable or a cartridge, why do you think they decided to take this route with RE7? Clearly, the game can run on the Switch, so why not just make it downloadable? I love the game, but have never had the chance to play it. That's what he says. That's weird. So I'll definitely try it. Wait, I love the game, but have never had the chance to play it. So I'll definitely try it, but feel uncertain about the experience. What the hell does that mean?
I think we actually need to unpack that statement a little more before we word.
Love the game. Still in shrink wrap on my shelf, but I love that.
I mean, actually, there's a world in which that is true. In that, like a lot of people aren't interested in. Oh, okay.
Are you hot?
Always. There's a lot of people I talked to when I worked at Giant Bomb. I did a lot of streaming horror games, and a lot of people would then tell me, "Hey, I love horror games, but I can't play them." And so I think if I'm giving such a benefit of the doubt, there's a world where maybe like you watch a live stream of it, and it was like, "Hey, I love this game, but
I'll give it to him.
Just haven't played it." No, I think it's probably right that you could get that game built on Switch, but it's a game that it's a year and a half old now.
Yeah.
Like if it was going to come out. Let's say it came out this winter, like some, sort of like filtered down version over Switch. It's almost 2 years later, like you're probably getting close to like whatever that team is going to announce next. And it's like at that point, like maybe you could just skim off the top, like diminishing returns, just let it stream.
Do you think it's a performance thing though? That like
I think it's just an effort. It's just like, I think it's a same with like the retail stuff. It's a cost calculation. It's like, could they build this game on Switch? Yes. But for the amount of money they think they might make, like, why not do this? Or it's also like, hey, could we with Switch? It's possibly Capcom has admitted, like when Monster Hunter World came out earlier this year, like why was this game not on Switch? Like this Switch is super popular. Like why wouldn't you build it for that? And I remember their president saying like we didn't have plans for this, and they're agreeing between the lines. And from what I've heard about how Japanese companies were sort of looking at the Switch prior to launch, like the Wii U, people felt it really burned, and so they weren't planning to bet a whole lot on Switch, and they were going to give it some time. People did not expect the Switch to take off the way it did, and so a lot of companies are playing catch-up, but that catch-up involves technology that was never built for the Switch in mind. And so I think companies like Capcom, they're kind of rushing out a Monster Hunter game for Switch, and I think RE7, it's more just like, should they spend the time to build it, or can you just do the streaming thing and like kind of get pretty close, see what the audience is like? If the audience actually like really turns out for a streaming version, then maybe in the future, hey, we'll start building these games with the Switch in mind.
Raul from Chicago writes into kindoffunny.com/KFGD and says, so Capcom has revealed the cloud version of Resident Evil 7 for Switch. Even though it's Japan only for now, do you see this cloud version label catching on with other titles / publishers? While it could be great for garnering third-party support, it could potentially undermine Switch's strongest selling point, on-the-go gaming, which it would require you have an internet connection to play.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's only in Japan is interesting. Like, I wonder if that is Nintendo sort of realizing, if they're going to make a pivot to something like that, you want to get it under sort of like a broader, I don't know, initiative, or like maybe if there's some way you could do an accessory that came with like, you could do an LTE connection to your Switch or something like that. But I mean,
isn't Wi-Fi everywhere now though? That's the other thing, right?
But
Nintendo refuses to give up on this thing too. Oh, it's a console, but you can take it with you. They refuse to be like, it's a handheld. You know what I mean?
And I haven't played any of these games that stream
stuff,
the cloud stuff recently. So like, I wonder like what kind of performance you need. Like, will it operate under like Starbucks Wi-Fi, or would that be like a crummy experience? So it may be in Japan, Capcom has a little more leeway with Nintendo, like, hey, like we want to try this thing, and like I guess you see how it pans out and see how whether that comes to the rest of the territories. My guess would be that it doesn't leave Japan. Like,
I would think so too.
I think if you're going to see cloud-based stuff happen, it would probably start with Nintendo, and that also doesn't seem like what they're going to do. So I wouldn't rule it out, but my guess is it actually is maybe part of the brand thing where it's like, hey, like this is the way our games are going to be. But in Japan, Capcom can make a little more of an ask to see if they can get that going.
Sure. And I think to his question of will it catch on, I think it just depends on how this goes and how it performs, right? If you get it and it's just a latency mess, right? And it's like when they launched the PlayStation Now stuff originally,
right?
And it was like terrible. Like, no, that's going to kill it. But if it comes out and it is great and it is what we always wanted Gaikai to be way back in the day when it was like, I'm playing Batman Arkham Asylum on my tablet. You know what I mean? Like if they can get it to work that way, then more power to them.
Well, I have a Steam Link connected to my PC. So my PC's in my office, and I have a projector in my house, and unless I get an electrician to come out like to wire a long HDMI cable, there's just no way to get that directly connected to the projector. So I looked into different solutions, because it's like I could play on my PC, or I can play on this like giant 100-inch screen. And so I looked into the Steam Link, and like that thing operates over, you can do it over Ethernet, but I have it operating wirelessly, and like if you don't play fighting games, like it's basically indistinguishable. Like I played like dozens of hours of like Witcher 3 and like other games that aren't quite Twitch games, but certainly like
Geralt's not getting hit by anything.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to play Dark Souls, but like for a lot of games, it was perfectly manageable. Like a lot of Telltale stuff was like totally great.
Telltale, you'd be fine.
And so I mean, I would when I look at my Switch, like I've often thought sometimes, because there's been folks that have been working on like homebrew apps for Switch where like you'd be able to stream like your Steam library and it would just like map to the Switch. It's like at some point I'm going to buy 2 Switches, one that I can like hack and like I'm going to stream my Stream library to it, and the other one so I can play official stuff. So I mean, so I think like sort of local streaming actually is here, works really well, and I know like Nvidia has a solution that like streams to like laptops and iPads and stuff like that.
Not, usually when you got into the Wi-Fi area, it's when it got really fishy. But like Vita, like what you're talking about for remote play, like I played read-only memories that way. You know, watching football and sitting there and just going through, and that was totally fine. You know, streaming the PlayStation 4 to it.
I remember when I got into like the Taken King on Destiny, it was like the first time I was like into Destiny, and so I like that, I forget the name, the Zur, like the one who like sells like the items
exotics,
once a week. Yeah. And I was like out of town, like right after I'd gotten into Destiny. I said, well, how am I going to go see what he's selling? And I brought my Vita with, and it's like the Starbucks Wi-Fi was not, you couldn't play the game, but I could like make my way over to Zur as like the screen blurred out and cut away, like buy my shit and move on.
It's cool. I just want the tech to get there and be perfect.
Yeah.
Number 3. This is from Eddie, our friend over at GameSpot, who says, no single player. The devs say there's no problem for that for Call of Duty. Jumping into this GameSpot article, we spoke to Call of Duty executive VP and GM Robert Kostick about this recently, and he told us that Black Ops 4 lacking a traditional campaign won't be much of a problem. Activision had, we're gonna get to it. We give you the news and then we're gonna talk about it. Activision has more work to do with the messaging department to let fans know that Black Ops 4 lacking a campaign doesn't necessarily mean the game won't offer a solo experience and story beats. Quote, as we go forward through the year, fans are going to learn a lot about the story that's embedded in this game, he said. Look, it's not a dedicated campaign like it was in the past. We're telling stories differently this year. We think our community is going to love the game from end to end because it has so much to offer. The core focus of it, I don't think that's going to be a problem, really. I think what our community is going to love at the end of the day comes down to the gameplay and the fun you have with it. And I think that's what this game is going to have in spades. This is a little different from what we've done in the past, end quote.
Bad
marketing.
spin.
Yeah.
They were building a campaign for that game. It got away from them. And like the decision to change that was like relatively recent in the grand scheme of things for a game coming out in October.
Yeah.
The one next year is going to have a campaign. The year after that's going to have a campaign. The thing I was shocked by was that they didn't have sort of better a better messaging spin explanation for like how they were going. I think it actually would have been better if they, I'm not a marketing person, but like if they just said like, we tried to, it didn't work out, but like 100%. We still have a ton of stuff for you this year, and like we'll see you next year. Because like especially for the way the Call of Duty franchise has gone, like the single players have been kind of all over the place. Like that's pretty much the only way I play Call of Duty is like I love dipping into like a Michael Bay like big boom thing once a year.
Yeah, I'll shoot stuff in the ground, get in the plane, fly into space. Okay.
Yeah, and I liked the one last year actually. Like the robot had a very touching moment in last year's Call of Duty, but. And I know people feel really passionate about the Black Ops games, right? Like, and they actually really like the stories. Like, for this one to be the one where like they fumble the ball, like
World War II was last year. I don't want.
Oh, World War II, the one before that.
You're talking about
like
Infinite Warfare.
Infinite Warfare, yeah. I've heard from folks I know over there that they've been genuinely shocked at like how difficult it's been to make this transition to the. Because people forget. They didn't used to have 3 years to build each of these games. Like that's something they transitioned to as they got Sledgehammer, Infinity Ward. Treyarch all within games sort of simultaneously, and they thought 3 years would be enough time for them to really flesh these out. And that's easy to say and easy to snark at, but there has been genuine sort of surprise that it's been this difficult, and that Treyarch especially has been sort of like they were like the heir to the throne when Infinity Ward sort of fell apart, was that, like these are the guys that are going to pick up the mantle. Black Ops is like the new Modern Warfare. And then, so it's sort of surprising to see how things are sort of all over the place with this one. And I think, I don't know how it'll affect sales. It'll be like an, easy spin move for them to say like, sales are down. Like, oops, we didn't have a single player campaign. But don't worry. We've got one next year. We heard the demand for this thing that we've been building for 2 years already, and like will conveniently just come out next year. Yeah,
that's. I mean, you started in an interesting spot that I feel EA and Activision inhabit, and I don't know if or when they'd ever want to leave it, or if they ever will. But the fact that I feel Ubisoft, PlayStation with the launch of PlayStation 4. All these companies realizing that the people they're selling to that care enough to watch the conferences and do. Like knowing there's human beings there, and like understanding that, like, when they did the PlayStation 4 and it's Shu and Adam passing a game, and that's how you share games, and Jack Trent getting all this applause when he says all this, like moving away from being the corporate overlord, right? Yves Guillemot being out in front so much of Vivendi's trying to get us, and we're not going to let him. And this is why. And like, we're a human being. And like, oh wow, okay, cool. And then you get to something like this where it's like, cool. Being
like that whole quote is just like, what even
it's
is
just word salad, right? Of
like,
just all this different stuff.
Like, I mean, I don't know how, it's probably tough because I'm sure it was like awful for the team that was working on that, and like it's not something to to be proud of. But like, there was probably some way to like wink at like a very in the know audience. Like, these people know what's going on. They are going to read the reports on Polygon or Kotaku or Waypoint. Like, they're going to know that like, you guys were building a single player campaign that just didn't work out. Yeah. And so just some way to like acknowledge.
And that was the thing of being in.
And also pretending like a team wasn't building something for like 2.5 years, right?
Being in the audience at that press conference on Thursday, right, was like so like, wow, this feels like 2008. You know what I mean? Like, this is such a thing. He's like, here's something you're really gonna like. You know what I mean? It's like, oh well, like, you can come out and just have fun with it and explain what's going on and be like, hey, I know there's been not even an acknowledgement of, hey, there's been a lot of rumors about single player.
All you've got to do is just wink at it a little bit and be like, oh, okay, you got to do because you're a company and blah, blah,
exactly.
blah.
Shareholders and everything else.
Right. Like,
it's so easy for us to
it's a different world, but like there's a way to handle that, and I just think because how early things broke, like a couple of weeks before this event happened, they had time to sort of like figure out like, okay, well, how do we pitch this? Because this is going to be like every interview from now until launch is going to have some question about like, oh, so then how are you doing the single player content? And I don't know how they've broken that up. I don't know if these storytelling missions they're doing assigned to the classes is just them taking like set pieces and repurposing them. I haven't done the reporting on that, but it's a bad look, especially because they didn't have the battle royale stuff like ready. They don't know the player count. They didn't have like a proper like it just seemed like for again how long these games are in production, how long you have ready to like put the best face forward. The fact that they didn't have more to say or more things. 'Cause I think if they'd made the battle royale sort of like the centerpiece of that, like, they at least wanted something for people to latch on to be like, oh, this is like Call of Duty putting its spin on this thing. Yeah. They're the first like AAA studio that's going to be able to like, if this trend dies out very quickly, like at least they're going to still be on the train while it's going, like before it goes the way of the MOBA and like where there's a billion of them and then only a couple of them catch. But yeah, I've been genuinely shocked at like how poor they've responded to this, and I think they may be underestimating how much. Not that there aren't plenty of people who will still buy this game, even though there's no campaign, but how many people still did enjoy those campaigns. I don't know how much that shows up in the bottom line, but I do know in sort of like the emotional part of people's attachment to this series, like that is like a huge part of it.
Yeah, I thought the reveal conference was so interesting in such a interesting opposite to Destiny. And like for whatever happened with Destiny 2 and how they fall in that thing, their reveal event was great in terms of like it's this, it's that. When they were done, go play a million stations, like different things to play. Whereas this one ended, it was like, okay, what's your time to play Call of Duty multiplayer? I was like, me and Jeff were like noon. He's like, all right, well go to the food truck till then. I was like, oh. And you came back and we played an hour of it, and then it was like, oh, like there was no battle royale and there was nothing. And it was just like, I still suck at Call of Duty multiplayer, so like I don't have much to contribute here as I got my head kicked in.
Yeah, I think a little bit of that is, Bungie has a little more to say in their relationship with Activision, right? Sure. And so, not that Bungie isn't in large parts beholden to Activision. They ultimately are the ones sort of financing everything. But, for what I understand about the relation between those two companies, like Bungie really goes to the mat to like try and make things that feel like something that is as true to what they believe in the larger structure of like working for like a giant corporation like Activision. Sure. And they pull the purse strings. But my guess is that reflects a lot of just like Bungie trying to put that like special touch on things, even if Destiny 2 hasn't quite panned out the way anyone really wanted them or
it panned
anyone
out
playing
perfectly
it.
for me because it was an easy platinum. I had a great month with it. I was like, see you later. Final story on the Roper Report today. This is just put it in your hat as E3 grows closer. There might be a new Square game coming. Alex Osborn at IGN says a trademark for Outriders has been filed by Square Enix. The trademark, spotted by Gamatsu, was filed on May 18th, 2018 with the European Union Intellectual Property Office, or as you may know it, the EU IPO.
Oh, right.
Of course, right?
Why even list that?
Square Enix has yet to announce anything related to the trademark, but considering it was filed as Game Software and Entertainment Services, it's quite possible Outriders is the name of a game that will soon be announced by the publisher. So just put it under your hat, get ready for that E3. You never know what's coming.
Outriders, that just makes someone make a Sunset Riders sequel. Where's that?
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
Bury me with my money. Great game.
All right, so here's the other thing. I never prep you for the show. I never
Good.
prep anything.
Yeah, it's
Wait, let's
fine.
get to this point. I'm going to do a really bad transition.
Yeah.
And then I need you to read all that, okay?
Okay.
Patrick, I'm excited for E3, and I can't wait to see what this Outriders is all about. But if I wanted to know what games came to the Mom and Grop shop today, where would I go?
The official list of upcoming software across each and every platform is listed by the Kinda Funny Games Daily Show hosts each and every weekday.
Yeah. Out today, Elder Scrolls Online gets a new Somerset chapter. It's launching on PC, Mac, and in early access. Then the Wipeout Omega Collection demo is now available on PS4. Meanwhile, new dates for you. Anti-Gravitor, Jesus, is releasing on June 6th for PC and Steam.
It's all caps. There was a...
That's a great sign of, oh, Greg, you went through your email and just copied the PR press release title in here. Yep, just if you were out there looking for anti-gravitor news, there it is for you. This is actually really exciting for me. West of Loathing is coming to the Switch on May 31st.
Oh, I really wanted to play that game.
Me too. Ever since I saw it at PAX, it's the stick figure RPG. You go through and do it in the Wild West.
Yeah, it seems perfect for like the Switch. Like I downloaded it on my computer and was like, this just didn't feel like a PC game. Like it feels like a game I want to take with me and like play on the train or something like that.
So many games like that, right?
Yeah, well, the Switch has ruined things. In a really good way, but yeah.
H1Z1 Battle Royale. It will be available to download for free on PlayStation 4 tomorrow. Rec Room for PlayStation VR is getting a free Rec Royale mode.
Wait, what is that? What is that? Mm-hmm.
I believe it. Yeah, get in there.
Okay,
Battle Royale.
sure, yeah.
Over, June 7th. And then The Crew 2 is getting a beta. This is via GameSpot. The closed beta begins May 31st and runs until June 4th. As is the case with most other closed beta, space is limited. So only players who have registered for the test at the game's official website will be selected to participate. I got there. Those who are chosen will be able to preload the beta beginning May 29th. Now, Patrick, it's time for reader mail. But first, I'm going to tell you about our sponsors. First off, it's Brooklinen. How many times do I have to tell you about Brooklinen? I don't know. They keep sponsoring the show, so I'll keep doing it. Are you familiar with Brooklinen?
I'm not. Please tell me.
You can buy sheets and comforters online this way.
Gosh, I could use some more.
Now, what I'm telling you, and I sleep on them right now.
Yeah?
All the photos you see of Portillo on the bed are on the Brooklinen thing.
Okay.
What I always talk about is the fact that I'm an idiot. Everyone knows this.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know how to dress myself, period. So,
Bad.
like, when I go there, like, colors and things, whatever. But it was so easy to click on the colors I might want and see them on the comforter.
I like this color. I like this color. I like this color.
On the pillowcase. It was that easy that I could see they looked good. Bought it without Jen's approval. Came home and Jen was like, "This looks really good. This worked out."
How
nice.
did you do this?
Exactly. I did it with Brooklinen.com. The best, most comfortable sheets with no big markup. They are the best of online bedding, according to Good's Housekeeping. They have versatile colors and patterns you can mix and match to complement any decor. Brooklinen.com has an exclusive not an officer. Cool, Greg. No officers are coming by. Don't worry. Offer. For my listeners, get $20 off and free shipping when you use the promo code GAMES at brooklinen.com. Man, how do we get that, Cool Greg? Games. I wish we had that.
That's a good one.
SEO everywhere. Brooklinen is so confident that they offer a risk-free 60-night satisfaction guarantee and a lifetime warranty on all their sheets and comforters. The only way to get $20 off and free shipping is to use the promo code GAMES at brooklinen.com. That's BROOKLINEN.com. Promo code GAMES. Brooklinen. These are the best sheets ever, which again is an awesome tagline.
I'm gonna buy some sheets. I want to impress my wife the same way. I can't dress myself. Like I rely on her to like put things together. I don't know how colors work. I'm not even colorblind. Like I can't even blame anything.
No. I blame Catholic school. I went kindergarten through the graduating high school.
I'll do Sunday school. I'll claim that. One day a week, ruin it.
I'd have to dress myself. I don't know how anything matches. Anyways, speaking of dressing yourself, Greg Way, our next sponsor is MeUndies. Are you kidding me? Again, I got to tell you about MeUndies. Patrick, I'll tell you right now. The only underwear I wear, MeUndies. Here it comes. There it is. I'm wearing the perps today. Feel us off there.
You told me it was hot before.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, but it's not in the, you don't worry.
Okay.
They got all sorts of
that a benefit?
Yeah. The MeUndies, they got all sorts of airing, clearing out in there. You're fine. Don't worry. No, you're fine. Don't worry. That film, that's natural. See,
I don't feel anything. I'm gonna burst out in zits tomorrow.
No! You can get underwear sent to your door so soft, so risk-free. If I'm lying, I'm dying, and I'm not, because you already saw me wear them. Again, when I started, I buy them. This isn't even part of the deal. I just buy my own underwear from MeUndies and get them.
You're so responsible.
You know what? When you find something you like MeUndies, you do it. And that's, I'm not even looking at the ad part of it. I'm just telling you how great MeUndies are. To get 20% off your first pair, free shipping, and a 100% satisfaction guarantee, go to MeUndies.com/GamesDaily. That's MeUndies.com/GamesDaily. Patrick, let's start with Skip. Skip writes in to kindafunny.com/KFGD with a long one. So I'm going to take one sip of water here. Hello! I have a follow-up question / commentary around something that was brought up on Friday's excellent show with Jared and Kasey. By the way, shout out to Jared Petty, doing the lion's share shows last week, and shout out to all the guests who came in. I'm not going to list you all here. I was at Judges Week.
Oh, that's right.
You know what I mean? So I was just like, whatever.
How they're being lazy, playing video
Me
games.
and Andrea and just drinking on the beach, not even seeing games. There was a reader mail question about how games media isn't doing more to shine a brighter light on and fix the problems of developers at studios with things like crunch and etc. My question is, why exactly is it up to the enthusiast games media to stand up for people who are ultimately not willing to stand up for themselves? I fear this question sounds mean, and I don't intend it to be mean, but it seems to me that this is the crux of the issue. It seems the developers at these studios working under these poor conditions have made a decision that working in those conditions is better than doing something different. We are talking about smart and talented men and women that could leverage their skills into another job opportunity. So, for them just to stay in these situations that are poor, they must have made the determination that it's worth it. And, if that's the case, why is it the job of the press to make their situation better? I work in software development, not games though, and I would find a different job if I was that overworked and unhappy. If enough other people at my employer did the same thing, wouldn't they be forced to make a change in how they run things? I'm all in for the media shining the light on issues like human trafficking where the victims don't have any choice, but I am not seeing any overlap here with the development community. Am I way off base? Anyways, thanks for all you do. Easy question, Patrick. You get the easy answer.
To channel my inner Austin Walker, I mean, capitalism is bad, and individual workers don't have a lot of power. There was just actually a ruling by the Supreme Court today in which they struck down the ability for workers to do class action lawsuits if they've taken jobs in which they have waived their right to class action lawsuits in favor of individual arbitration. The way that works is that individual arbitration is that individual labor disputes are handled on a per laborer basis as opposed to everyone collectively working together to sort of like force a change through a company. And so like the fact that that was just made on a 5-4 ideological split decision is part of like long list of our country moving in a like anti-labor position in which like they have continued to strip away the rights of individuals as opposed to the collective. And so the fact that I understand the impulse to say, why don't you just go find like a better situation? Well, for one, if you want to work in games, like there isn't one, right? Like you go work for a big corporation to other big corporation.
Maybe developer X is doing great, but how many jobs do they have? They can't cover everybody.
And maybe you have, maybe you're like, you're making the money in your family for your kids and your wife. Like who knows the individual circumstance? And also, the video game industry would be much better for it if they were to unionize. That's very difficult. That's a long, arduous process. It would be very challenging.
We had Jason Schreier on at GDC, and he was talking about how this is all starting to actually.
Well, the fact that people are vocalizing it is important. The fact that people are talking about it is important, and that's where a lot of the media reports, people like Jason, myself, others have done lots of work trying to shine a light on that stuff. Is trying to build a conversation around it, but the going from conversation to action and going from conversation to collective action. So the reason you don't see sort of collective action is because it's how corporations, and this isn't exclusive to video games, this is just how sort of like capitalist corporations work, is that like it is in the individual's benefit to just sort of like sit down like I got mine, like why should I put my neck out for everyone else? But if everyone puts their neck out together, then, so you can enact collective change. And yeah, it's tough because I think your Skip is presuming too much about individual circumstances. That I think a lot of those people would like to change their circumstances, but who knows, what reason they can. Or maybe they're attached to the project. Like there's so many reasons why you would stay at a job, even if it's sort of nightmarish conditions. The onus is really on folks like that are in positions to like I wish folks like Corey Barlog, who, that game had a lot of crunch over the course of its like 5-year development cycle. Like folks that are in position to like sort of identify labor practices that they could do better. Like even if unionization is one step too far, or maybe it's just an unrealistic goal, I would like it if more studio heads at least acknowledge not that things are bad, but that they should do better, right? Like you often will see studio heads talk about like, ooh, that was a pretty bad crunch on that game, like, but that's part of the passion. And it's like people use the word passion to sort of like delegitimize, whether intentionally or unintentionally, like the legitimate grievances that workers have about like their circumstances.
Sure.
And like passion is one thing, but like people also should like be able to live their lives and like be happy and have lives outside of like their quote unquote passion. Right. Like, and what I would like to see in it, like, I don't expect unionization to happen. That's like a long-term goal for I think fixing a lot of things in video game labor. But what I'd like to happen in, you know, the next couple of years is like an acknowledgement that things are bad, we should do better, and that there are ways to make even non-union companies and studios like operate better. And like it's by like vocalizing like families are important, like free time is important. Like I've already heard from like multiple folks that are, you know, working on Red Dead Redemption, and like that's a game that like shock is going to have like all sorts of crunch from like now until that game ships in October. And like the real, like there's lots of victims in crunch, but often over and over what I end up hearing is when you don't create certain atmospheres in studios, everyone starts crunching even when everyone doesn't need to crunch, right? So it's like everyone acknowledges like at certain times like you just got to get something done, right? Yeah, like that's happened. That's just part of having a job. But crunch is like has its own term because it's like it's a systemic issue. And I was hearing from folks that have worked at various Rockstar games in the past, like folks that don't like let's say work on services related to the game when it launches, they're already doing crunch, even though they have nothing related to the games it launches, but it's just sort of assumed that, oh, like everyone, like, well,
all hands on deck.
If they're all going to be here, like everyone should be here. And this is not exclusive to Rockstar or to Red Dead. Like that is, I'm sure you would hear that story at almost any studio. And what you need is like people in a position of leadership to say like, actually, like that's wrong, that's bad, we need to fix this, we need to acknowledge where the issues are, and realizing you're going to lapse, realizing that games are still going to have periods of crunch, because that's just the nature of working on projects that have like big deadlines. But I think the industry needs to get better about like actually talking about the fact that it's an issue, especially given there are people that are in a position to sort of enact that change. Like I remember the reason I brought up Cory Barlog was not to like single him out necessarily as much as like Brad Shoemaker over at Giant Bomb asked him a question like, hey, what do you think about the labor stuff and like how it relates to God of War? And like he went back to sort of the default sort of like passion answer. And like I see where that comes from, but I wish just more folks like him were like at the height of your powers. Like you've shipped this enormously successful game.
Yeah.
Like what is Sony going to do? Turn around and fire you? Like they're not. Like say like actually like we could have done way better on this project. And like you're making a game about families, and the fact that working on that game wasn't family friendly. Like I think that's a problem, and that's not exclusive to that game, that studio. That is just an industry problem, right?
Yeah,
and if we're gonna start telling all these stories about like families and like fathers learning to be better fathers and all that sort of thing, like I think it would go hand in hand. That like it should be easier and maybe not easier to make games, but should be more thoughtful about like the lives of the people building them.
I mean, to Skip's question of like, why is it the role of games media to talk about this and show? Because I think that how would you learn that story if you didn't know? And I don't mean to like bring it down to any manufacturing or food production, but it's kind of like, it's like the farm to table movement of you want to know how that you're having this great chicken dinner. Where did that chicken come from? Like, you know what I mean? Like not what was its name or something like that. But I mean, of course you want to know that the people who got it here are being taken care of, right? We need to, I think we're so far beyond sitting there and being like, you know what, this game was great, played it in 3 hours, tossing aside and not thinking about the hundreds of people that worked on it, the time and sacrifices they put into it. I want to know the people that are making the art that I'm enjoying are not killing themselves or being killed or feeling like they have no choice or feeling that the industry is such a thankless place that, yep, I put in all this overtime, all this stuff, and what do I hear? That fucking the sword goes through his chest in this cutscene. That's all you know what I mean? Like there's so many. It's such a
look at the Activision
issue.
stuff, right? Like we were like calling out Activision for like they couldn't even acknowledge that, you know, a single player campaign they'd spent a ton of money and resources building. They can't even say like, geez, like that thing existed and it didn't work. It's not going to hit the fact that a company can't even acknowledge that, like that was a thing. They just pretend. Like there were other lines I saw where they said like, oh, we had no plans for a single player. I was like, no, like that's just wrong. So like not shocking that like giant companies are not willing to like, if they can't even talk about things they were working on, like they're not going to talk about like, you know, poor labor practices or things where games went wrong. And so that is where it's incumbent on the press and to try and shine a line, because we have less to lose, right? Like, so if a developer stands forward and says like,
great point too,
like, hey, like working on whatever big budget game was bad. Like, who's going to hire that person, right? Or at least that's the specter that hangs over this is the specter that hangs over anyone that like comes forward about these topics. It's why they're largely anonymous about any big budget production where they'll talk about like where things went poorly, whether it's related to things that aren't labor or things that are labor, is because like at the end of the day, like yes, people may celebrate you and retweet you on Twitter for like speaking truth to power, but like that doesn't like put food on your table.
Right. Yeah. If anything, it's a chilling effect, right?
Right.
Like, you're really talented, but I don't want you blowing the whistle on whatever doesn't look good on our end.
Right. Especially when a lot of those folks are more expendable, right? Like random programmer is not like chief creative person, right? And so it's like that person coming forward, putting their name to it, like, well, especially because the video game industry, like they just churn through people because largely there is someone younger and hungry who wants to get into it. And so like, it's putting your name on it publicly like is going to ostracize you in a way that like what is the actual benefit for me. But then this is like goes back to that whole like individualistic collective union problem, is like that's the benefit of people doing things as an industry or as a collective, is that well you can't tear down all of you, but if you do it on your own, like it's really easy to just kind of push that person to the side.
Thank you, Skip. Thank you, Patrick. Look at that. What a good conversation. Alan E. McAdams writes in to kindoffunny.com/KFGD and says, hello, KFGD hosts. E3 is just around the corner, and we've heard a lot of Nintendo news, but there is one Nintendo game I haven't heard a scrap about. Where is the Switch version of Mario Maker? Can we expect a hint of it, or is this something further in the future? Love what y'all do, Alan E. McAdams. You like Mario Maker?
Yeah, I played Mario Maker every day, weekdays, for like the better part of a year, something like that. I did this stream on the side called Mario Maker Mornings, where I got wrapped up with some monster named some clown, Dan Reichert.
Never heard of him.
Stop following him on Twitter. Just like you give him power. You give him power.
He
was talking shit about Spider-Man Homecoming today.
What a surprise.
Saying it's like the worst MCU movie. Like, come on. Thor 2.
Who would have thought bad takes from Dan? Never would expect it.
Yeah, I loved Mario. I never even unlocked the full creation mode. I did not touch the level editor at all. I don't really have that sort of like creative bone in my body.
Yeah.
But I love Mario games, and I loved playing like all sorts of just weird, difficult. I'm a huge like hardcore like masochistic platforming fan. So like Super Meat Boy games like that are like right up my alley. And so that's what Mario Maker gave me a lot of. Like I'm not good enough to play the what do they call them, the Kaizo sort of levels, where you have to do all sorts of like weird glitches and stuff. Like I'm not that far along, but I loved Mario Maker and put just hundreds and hundreds of hours into that game, and so I'm desperate for a sequel. I don't know.
I'm surprised we haven't gotten it yet. I thought when the Switch was launching and we were like, well, what game? All right, they're bringing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Right. What else are they going to bring? Oh, clearly they're going to bring Mario Maker over.
The one hope I have is that because we haven't heard it yet, that it means we're actually going to get more of a sequel than just a port, because had that just been part of like the initial slate, it's like, oh, okay, they're going to do like they did with Mario Kart, where it's like kind of just port it over, and maybe there's a couple of extra things, characters or whatever, but it's generally just going to be the game that was on Wii U. I think that wouldn't have gone over as well, because reselling everyone like a creation tool set without new creation stuff would have been
true.
Give us slopes, Nintendo, please put slopes in the game. So I'm excited to see whatever. Like they're clearly going to make another one of those, and I'm really desperate and hopeful they're going to announce it at E3. I have no inside information on that, except that if I put my heart out there, then I can allow them to break it.
See, I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be next year.
It's flying so under the radar right now, where it is like, oh yeah, where is that? Whereas everybody else is like, where's Animal Crossing? What's Smash all about? Where?
Yeah, it sounds like Pokemon's going to be the big thing this year, and there are certain games that are just sort of like
retro.
Well, and they can hold in their back pocket, right? It's like, and I think like the big holiday game this year is probably going to be Pokemon, and like would it shock me if Mario Maker was like announced later this year for like next spring? Like probably
not.
Direct
at the end of the year, sure.
Yeah, like it's coming, but like Nintendo's in this like position like where they haven't been before, where like they can kind of like hold on to their cards for a little while, because like indie games are sort of like helping keep like the Vita, like helping keep that thing afloat,
right?
While they work on their stuff. So I hold out hope.
Right? Indie games were just keeping the Vita afloat. Nobody was working on anything else, but that was there. Stardew Valley any day now. You'll be all excited for it. Shane writes into kindoffunny.com/KFGD and says, Greg and Patrick. Greg was gone last week when Rage 2 was revealed. Patrick, you seem to have Rage on the brain since 2 was announced. What are both of your hot takes on Rage 2? Do you think this announcement and trailers would have been the talk of the town if they saved it for E3? Or do you think their release now does them a solid so they don't get lost in the noise? Stay tricky.
Yeah, definitely the second one.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the audacity of Bethesda. I don't know why Rage 2 exists. I'm glad it does.
You have a great piece that is the required reading of today. You can head over to Waypoint and get the Bethesda is such a weird company, but that's exactly why they're so fun.
Yeah.
Article from Patrick.
They announced, and I mentioned this earlier, they announced a Prey 2 that was like canonically in the same universe as Prey, about a Native American man fighting aliens. And then like he was going to be in Prey 2, like it's placed in the same world. They canceled that game. That demo remains one of my like all-time favorite. Like I love it on YouTube. Like I would still play that game.
Yeah.
And they canceled that, announced a new Prey, called it Prey. Has nothing to do, like no connection whatsoever, not even like a hat tip. Like it's just completely separate. And the audacity to do that is just one of those things that I always find very impressive and interesting about Bethesda. Like, I played Rage. It was not particularly good. Like, not shocking that id Software, like a studio that was like known for corridor shooters, like didn't do a particularly good job at making like an open world game where like just the demands of making something like that are just like wholly different. Like that is just not a pivot that you just make overnight. But Avalanche is making Rage 2, and they're, from what I understand, like their Swedish studio is the one working on it. Like Avalanche is kind of like an A-team, B-team sort of studio. Like the folks that made Just Cause 3
aren't the people who made Mad Max.
Are not the main. Yeah, the Mad Max. Yeah, they went Just Cause 2, Mad Max, and now Rage 2. And then if the fabled Walmart leak is true, then Just Cause 4 will probably get announced at the Square Enix press conference, and like that'll be something that the New York team is making. Like no disrespect to the New York crew, but I'm more excited that like Mad Max or Rage 2 is coming from. You could just call it Mad Max because that's basically probably why they hired that team.
I'm like, oh, it's Mad Max with purple and pink. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what to expect from that game, except that like I like the sensibilities of that team, and I like the fact that Bethesda is just like Rage 2, like a game no one was asking for.
Yep.
We could have called it anything. We could have just called it Rage again, but nah, Rage 2. But I don't know their internal thinking, but isn't it easy to imagine they're like, it's just kind of funny to call it Rage 2, and like. Whatever happens with that, I don't know. Todd Howard's making another game. Like it's fine.
Well, that's what I love so much about the article you have up there is that it's something we've talked about before. That Bethesda just gets to do whatever they want. And like when you talk to Pete Hines and he's like on a podcast, whatever, he'll curse and he'll tell you like if he can't answer something, he'll tell you he can't answer that, or he'll give you a real answer. He's not usually one to bullshit. And I'm sure somebody can break out a clip somewhere where he said something PRE.
Well,
but I mean, they are a company that's like, yeah, no, we wanted to do this. Like you call that right? Like Evil Within. That original game came out and had like a cult following or whatever, and it was good.
All right. Yeah.
But in that, most other AAA publishers would be like, cool, never again. And like they were like, you know what? Here's another crack at it, and you loved it, and so many people loved it.
Yeah, they gave that team another shot, and the section I had in the piece was that like, does the fact that it's one they have Todd Howard's games, both Fallout and Elder Scrolls, and like if God blesses us, then was it Starlink, whatever. Like, give me your space RPG, but but whatever. Like whatever they make is just going to sell like ungodly amounts of money. It sells for years and years after. Like crucially, it's not so front loaded. Most video games are front loaded, and most video games try and put a tail on it through these games as a service things and season passes, and like people just are happy to pay for stuff for whatever Bethesda puts out post Oblivion, and I just wonder if that allows them to just sort of like fail, right? And fail in ways that they don't have to then own up to it on a quarterly call and be like, yep, that game was a bomb, like we're never doing that again, like don't worry, like shareholders, like we're fine. Because as I mentioned in the article, like I used to spend a lot of time listening to quarterly calls for work, and the funniest ones years ago were Take-Two's, because Take-Two owns Rockstar, and like around the time that they were like pivoting to being like a company with like multiple like big games, like this is like around the time like BioShock, Borderlands, stuff like that was happening, they'd buy Take-Two be beating their chest over like another quarter where they lost money, but like we have this new IP that people are excited about, and then you get to the investor like Q&A and just be like, so what's up with Rockstar? And they'd like say like, well, they're working on a game, it's coming in the future. They're
hard at work.
And then the next question would be like, right, but what about Rockstar? And like every question would just be some veiled weight, because all the investors and shareholders cared about was like, what's up with Rockstar? And the reason they have to speak that way is because they're a private company, or they're a public company, whereas Bethesda or ZeniMax is a private company, and so they don't have to explain. Like if they have a failure, they're like, all right, like we'll give that team another shot or not, but like they don't have to explain it to anyone.
Yeah.
And so there's none of the like shareholder fallout. Like if they are content with like throwing things at the wall, seeing what sticks, and if it doesn't, rather than like having egg on your face, it's just like, all right, we just move on to the next thing. And so that's what I find interesting about the company is like, one, they just refuse to give up the IPs that they have. Like they're just like, yeah, we're gonna make a Rage 2. Like we didn't have to, but like we will. And also that like they just do strange, unexpected stuff because they have sort of the resources to do it, and they're doing it right. Like Dishonored 2, Prey, like those are both games that didn't sell particularly well, but I feel like they made them because like they wanted to make good games. Like everything at the end, like they wanted those games to sell better than
Obviously,
they did, right?
Yeah,
like
you want everything to be a giant colossal hit, but they know they had set realistic expectations,
right? And both with Death of the Outsider, which was an add-on for Dishonored 2, and Prey's DLC, which will probably get announced at E3. It's like they're doing this thing that like some TV shows get, which is like, oh, they were like a critical hit, but like not commercially successful. Sometimes those TV shows will get like, a small season to like, hey, wrap up your storylines.
Yeah.
And it seems like Bethesda actually does that with their games, because like Death of the Outsider wraps up the Dishonored storyline really well. And it plays like you could do more, but like you feel cool as a fan where it leaves off.
Cool. It just tied it up and I can walk away.
Yeah, and that's just like not something you have to do. And so it's cool to see a company like have the resources and like initiative to actually do that. So
okay. Patrick.
Yeah.
I have couple questions for you here. People I want to know about you. Ian wrote into kindoffunny.com/KFGD and says, who is more Chicago? Because, of course, I'm from the burbs of Chicago. You're from the
We're
burbs
both
of
from the
Chicago.
burbs.
Yeah,
neither of us are Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you're way more. Way more Chicago. You represent Chicago the way I represent Mizzou.
Yeah, that's probably true. And I did at least manage to live in Chicago for a couple of years. Logan Square represent for 2 years when I moved back to Illinois. But yeah, the thing, I always say I'm from Chicago. So who's going to say like I grew up in the northwest suburbs? Like, do you know where the Pacific Northwest Metro line?
Well, for me, it was the weirdest thing when I went to Mizzou and I got there and I knew nobody and I don't know anything about Missouri. The amount of people who were like, oh man, I'm from St. Charles. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm from, and they're like, no, St. Charles, Missouri. And so a freshman year, like by week 2, I was done saying, oh, I'm from Glen Ellen. I was like, I'm from Chicago. And if you have any follow-up questions, I'll very specifically describe where I'm from.
Well, because immediately someone's like, oh, what part of Chicago? And then it's like, oh, right, okay, I'm being called out. Like, when I moved back to the Chicago, well, I actually moved back to Chicago when I moved from San Francisco. I had gotten in the habit of saying, oh, I'm from Chicago. And my friends would be like, no, you're not. Like, you need to now start saying like Mount Prospect. And it's like, oh, okay, you're right, Mount Prospect.
eggsaladbob wrote into kindoffunny.com/KFGD and says, hey, Patrick.
Hey.
I've been a fan since the 1UP days.
Wow, my hair was a lot longer then.
It was insane. Now that you're a seasoned industry veteran and presumably played a lot of games, what's something you'd like to see in video games that they haven't done yet? I'm speaking to whatever you can think of: mechanics, narrative, visuals, culturally or socially related, etc. What are games missing?
What are games missing? Well, they're missing Mario Maker 2.
That's true. That's a big part. That's big.
I'm someone that loves horror games. Like I'm sad that it seems like VR is not going to pan out to be much of a thing. Like it'll probably continue to have sort of like a cult following. Like I'm glad that like the sort of like bubble of VR gave rise to a bunch of like consumer ready like headsets like that like you can buy for a couple $100s. Like that's cool because that stuff wouldn't have been nearly as affordable without people thinking like this is going to be a huge industry. And it just seems like maybe that's not going to be the case, at least for video games. And like back to RE7, like that for me like solidified like, oh, like shit, like this is what VR and horror specifically go together extremely well because it gets rid of that barrier, like that safe barrier you have even when you're watching a scary film, where like you can look around your surroundings, you can touch other people, like you can ground yourself back in reality. And so what I was so excited about with VR was like stripping away that stuff. Like I really like being scared. It's by like roller coasters, all that stuff like feed right into the same sort of like adrenaline that I like to have. And so as we hit this space where games are probably not going to do as much VR, and specifically it seems like there'll be a lot of indie studios that continue to make stuff for VR, is my guess. Like I played Quill earlier this year, and like that game is tremendous. Like
Moss is great.
Or Moss, Quill is the character in Moss.
I got you.
And that stuff will continue to exist, but I was hoping for more RE7s, and I feel like RE8 is probably not going to have VR, like would be my guess, whatever that is. Or maybe they will because Sony will, pony up the money for it to happen. But like what I wish was there going to be more, even though there was a little bit of it, was like big budget, like AAA VR. Like I wanted like the giant art resources put into like scaring the shit out of me.
Well, that's
it just
the
seems
thing,
like that's not going to happen.
VR, yeah, everybody was bullish on, but when it launched, it just didn't have that killer app of like, even if RE7 could have been day and date with PlayStation VR, that would have been awesome, but I still don't think that would have been enough in terms of like, it's a brand new way to play. It's all like when I was playing Moss, it was very much like, oh, awesome. I love that it's traditional controls mixed in with a new way of looking around and like looking for collectibles or trying to figure out where to send Quill by looking into the picture, like bringing your head in and rotating it around. Like we just didn't have the thing because so many people were just giving you, all right, cool, it's just your head's the camera. And it's like, that's fine. But then it was weird. And
that stuff takes time, right? Like the joy was going to be watching them figure out the design language in virtual reality, whether it's horror or, platformers with a mouse.
The thing is, I hope people are still, I think the indie studios that are still doing stuff with it are doing cool, interesting things. And I hope that when that gets out there, there is enough of oh wow, this is because like as the PlayStation guy, like the PSVR subreddit, like so dedicated, so into it, so supportive of devs, and so there is an audience there that is gonna pay for these games and make them get a cult following, but I don't know if they'll ever be able to break out of that and be like, holy crap, I can't believe what this is.
Yeah, and some of that's honestly on Sony, in which like I was disappointed. Like I don't think the PSVR is like Move 2.0 or like other accessories they've put out and then
Vita 2.0
and then just gone right. Like where like they come out and like we're doing this is big for us and then don't support it with software. Because I remember when the PSVR was announced getting pushed, I remember like asking like folks I knew at various like internal studios, like, oh, like you must all be getting like, hey, you guys have to build like a VR thing for this. And it was like really genuinely kind of shocking when like there wasn't like it was a worrying sign when like there was nothing from Naughty Dog, there was nothing from Sony Santa Monica.
No, the first party. Where was your giant first party thing? And like London Studio doing Blood and Truth, which I played at that Paris event, and I can't wait for. I think looks awesome.
Yeah, and like there is that, but it like the Until Dawn guys are making a bunch of that stuff. But like in terms of like. You didn't like Until Dawn?
Until Dawn was great.
Oh, okay.
Rush of Blood was great.
Yeah.
Then we get into, hey, it's the Inpatient, hey, it's Bravo team, and everybody's like, what the fuck?
Right. Yeah. No, I'm with you there. And so I think that was I remember asking folks over there, like, are you getting the pitch, like, or the push rather, that like, hey, you just have to build something for VR. And I was like, no, actually, like, there's no push. And I was like, well, that's. Like, I don't want studios to do things they don't want necessarily, but also that was like an early worrying sign of like, oh, this isn't going to be like, hey, the whole company's getting behind this. Like our biggest studio is going to build things for this because, I think there's a difference between the London studio and like a Naughty Dog. Because it just shows that's more just like this is a prestige thing in which like are like the studios that command the most respect, like the most like cultural cachet, like they're going to build something for this too. Like it sort of says something both to like the autonomy and independence of those studios. Because what I also heard in response was like, we could have made something, but like it wasn't being pushed on us to build something, which is cool too.
Yeah.
But it's like, who wouldn't love to have seen what Naughty Dog would have done in VR or the God of War team would have done?
And that's the weird thing about it, where I remember hearing the same stories and being like, man, that's awesome. They're not forcing you, because they know if they force you, it's not going to be the product. It's like, hey, do you find this interesting? Hey, do you have an idea for it?
Right.
But everybody has their own idea for what they want to go make. And so if that doesn't line up, it doesn't line up. Final question, Patrick.
Please.
Comes from Ryan over at kindoffunny.com/KFGD, who says, what's up, Greg and Patrick? Patrick, what are your thoughts / experiences regarding the need for a degree in journalism? If one, and he's talking about in games, obviously. If one candidate has said degree and another doesn't when applying for a job in the field, does the degree give an advantage to the first person, or do experience, body of work, talent, etc., tend to be the driving forces in making this decision? Thanks for your time and everything you do at Kind of Funny and your existence, Ryan.
Yeah, you don't need to get a degree. I got it because I needed to get something. When I got out of high school and I'd been doing the writing thing for a little while, it was just like an easy pivot to get a journalism degree in college. But although granted, at that time when I went to school, I graduated in 2007. So I was going from 2007 to 2003. Like back then, like media, it was actually a more legitimate field, and not legitimate in the sense that like what I do is or isn't legitimate. It was more that like you could get a degree and then like pivot to getting a job. Like there was just a lot more money in media. Newspapers were more stable. Like things hadn't been so destabilized by the internet that it was one of those things where you could get a degree and reasonably think that would help you get a job. Actually, Mizzou was like a huge journalistic institution. That's one of the few schools. Like I would say, there are a couple of schools where I don't know if this is still true in 2018, but at the time, Mizzou was one of those schools. Like if you went there, that was like you went to a very prestigious school for journalism.
It still is. Video coming tomorrow. YouTube.com/kindafunny. We'll talk about it. But you and I were from the same time period of like, cool, I want to write for EGM. How the fuck do I do that? I guess journalism, and you went the journalism way, and you got and graduated in like
either an English degree or journalism.
And now everything's so shaken up that I think the degree proves you can do it and shows that you can commit to something and complete it. And I think, especially with like what you do and what Jason does and the way you guys deal with on the record, off the record sources, and like I'll deal with on the record, information, but when I'm out with developers, nobody's thinking I'm going to go home and make a YouTube video. It's like, hey, guess what, guys? I heard this interesting rumor. Like they know who you are in a way, but like being able to say, no, I have a degree in journalism, I have this, helps out in a way, and also frames it in such an interesting way that isn't the journalism, that isn't like, just repeating what you've heard somewhere else, which is kind of what this show is, but then we bring in, we repeat other people's information, but then we hope we can bring in with enough insight to it, that makes it something different.
Yeah, in terms of like when I'm looking at job candidates though, I would say it like has zero bearing. Like, often,
especially with where we are now.
So often what a journalism degree functions as is just a 4-year incubation period. Like it's a chance to do work. So it's like you have resources to get edited. You have resources to learn. Like it was interesting at my time. It was both a benefit and not a great thing because they hadn't pivoted to a lot of internet stuff yet. And so I knew my jobs leaving because I was writing for 1UP and Computer Gaming World. It was Xbox Nation, like some of the Ziff magazines that I was writing for in college. Like there was print, but it was very clear like my jobs were going to be digital, but there was like zero preparation happening because that all stuff takes time to trickle down to academia, people that can teach those classes. But I remember like specifically there was one class I had where I raised my hand. I was like, this doesn't seem useful given that most of us are not going to have jobs in print, and like that like really bristled the professor.
Well, it's not going anywhere. What are you talking about?
And I remember like their response was like, well, our job is not to help you get jobs. And I was like, well, that seems like I get it philosophically, but that seems like I'll waste of money. So it's like most of what ended up happening was like the stuff that was useful about my degree was learning some skills, things like on and off the record, stuff like that. But it was largely being applied to stuff I was doing on the side, like 100%. The work that I was doing for EGM and other places.
Learning how to pitch, right?
Yes.
Like how to talk to people, how to interview. Like that was what the journalism degree was great for me, and like really propelled me forward once we got to IGN where it was. I'll never forget that first time. All right, Chris Roper, I finished my first review, and he's like, awesome, put it up. And I was like, do you want to read it? Is there a copy editor? And he's like, no. And I was like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? Like coming from a daily newspaper to that, I was like, are you what? Just publish it and you're not, no one's going to
I put typos there on purpose to see if someone would catch them.
I'm testing you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to squad up. This is where one of you writes into kindafunny.com/KFGD, giving me your name, username, platform of choice, and why you need help in a video game. I read it here. The best friends come and find you. Everybody squads up and plays games together. This one's different. Kasey writes in with a squad up update. What's up, guys? About a month ago, I wrote in asking for Kinda Funny friends in the Des Moines area to join my PlayStation 4 community group with hopes of meeting new people. Kevin asked for an update, so here it is. Our community was a success with 23 people joining. This past Saturday, 4 of us got together at our local arcade bar and had a lot of fun playing Killer Queen. It was awesome meeting new people with similar interests. We had a great time chatting about games, comics, and movies. We are going to try to have a bigger meetup in 2 weeks, June 2nd. And who knows, maybe one day, we will have a formidable, Kinda Funny Killer Queen League team in Des Moines, Iowa.
You play Killer Queen?
I haven't yet. Tim really wants us to go do it.
Great
and do like
game.
Let's Plays. We just haven't gotten around to it. That was Kasey again. Spreken was his username, but he didn't say where that is. So just go to the subreddit and he'll find you, or the YouTube comments or something, and you can all figure out how to where in Des Moines to go play Killer Queen. I guess it couldn't be in that many places.
No,
they're very selective.
Yeah.
All right, so find the Des Moines thing, Killer Queen, and then sometime on June 2nd, go hang out there.
Figure it out.
The community will figure this all out. Patrick.
Yeah.
We asked people watching live on twitch.tv/kindafunnygames. No, yeah, that's right. I thought I'd be really rusty coming in after a week off, but I was ready. I was on it today.
Yeah, you haven't stumbled at all. You read this copy perfectly.
We asked them to write in tell us what we screwed up as we screwed up. All that jazz. Why is there a giant... Well, I didn't delete lines correctly at all here, apparently. You know what I mean? You get these lines in there. The Google... Maybe I did do it fine. Maybe, I don't know. Hold on.
He said everything was going great.
It was. Why? You're wrong. If you're here, you don't care at this point. You know what I mean? You're just along for the ride. You're just driving your car somewhere, going to go pick up your shitty kid. All right, here we go. You write into kindoffunny.com/you're wrong. Tell us what we screw up as we screw it up. Scroll back up. Oh, it's broken back. Oh, here they go. Now they're auto-populating. Here we go. Hold on, Patrick. We're getting there. Hold on. There we go. Okay. So here we go. Scroll it over. Steve wrote in, says you still cannot pre-order Sony products off Amazon. That has not been fixed yet, so that's good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Vin Zombie writes in and says some states require parental consent for tattooing a minor under 18, while others prohibited altogether. Good to know.
So from what I had heard, the fact that it happened right before God of War was not an accident. That is Amazon leveraging one of its pain points.
Sure, you're not getting away from us. Cesar wrote back in and said, to clarify, I saw groups like Achievement Hunter and Game Grumps play Resident Evil.
That was right.
So, yeah, you're right there.
See?
Okay. That doesn't count. He's talking about HDMI stuff for you, but that's not wrong. You didn't get that. Somebody says missed news about the Fortnite dev. That's not missed news. But them, they're going to put $100 million into esports.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever.
Oh, Epic Games says money. Shocking.
A whole bunch of people write in and say Starfield.
Starfield
is the game we were trying
not
to come
Starlink.
up with. Yeah, exactly.
Starlink is a thing, but I don't know what it is. It's scratching somewhere.
Kebabs is trying to update something else. Yeah. And then Lord of Pwn says, we kicked ass at Killer Queen. Can confirm. It was at Up Down. His username is on PSN. Thank you very much. So if you want to squad up with the Des Moines, Iowa team, hit up Spreken, Spreken, on the PSN. Oh, that makes sense. I'm stupid because he was talking about joining the PSN community on PlayStation 4. Join up there and go play that. Patrick?
Yes.
You've been a delight.
I made it.
Again, we don't. Not only do we not talk that much, we rarely are on camera ever together. So I'm happy this worked out finally.
We did both at the same time.
All at the same time.
This is socialized. We don't have to go get a beer. Like, this is it.
Yeah,
this is how we would have acted if we just gone around the corner.
It's true, 100%. Where can people keep up with you? What do you want to pimp?
You can follow me at Patrick Klepek on Twitter. Everything that I write these days is at waypoint.vice.com. I don't really, because of my kid, don't really have time for like extracurricular stuff. But maybe if Mario Maker comes back, that'd be the kind of thing that I would try and find time for. But yeah, you can find everything I write over at Waypoint.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Kind of Funny Games Daily. Remember, you can watch the show live on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames. You can watch it later on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. You can listen on podcast services around the globe. No matter where you do, thank you so much. Consider hitting up patreon.com/kindoffunnygames if you thought you had a good time today. If you thought, I understand you got to marinate on it. Did you enjoy the show today? Who knows? Maybe tomorrow you'll decide and we'll know then. We'll be back tomorrow with Andrew and Renee. But until then, it's been our pleasure to serve you. And then I shake your hand.
Oh.
That's the other thing I do.